The Cowboys are now on the clock.
We are treated differently than other people, and I don't like how we're treated, and just because of us doesn't mean anything to me.
It's just the way I feel. Mine's been racing so long, yeah. It's just no way to deal with these problems alone. And I really can't take it no more. I've been fighting temptations, my Lord. I'm young and I'm restless, and I really can't help it. I never felt selfish before. I've been living so reckless, I know. Tell me, Lord, can you help me? I said, Lord, can you help me? Now everybody got problems, yeah, but waiting no one way to solve them. I really came up from the bottom, struggling my mama on the last dollar. Hustling, man, I've been putting in these hours. The government been trying to take away what's ours. Really all about the money and the power.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Tell me how we gon' shape this vision. Complaining all day, but in the same condition. If you wanna make change, it's gon' take commitment. Some people enslaved by their religion can't emancipate the fundamental principles. What I see through optics transform the wisdom. Watch me use my prophets, get them on the list.
The Bears are now on the clock.
And I really can't take it no more. I've been fighting temptations, my Lord. I'm young and I'm restless, and I really can't help it. I never felt selfish before. I've been living so reckless, I know. Tell me, Lord, can you help me? I said, Lord, can you help me? Now everybody got fights, yeah, but wouldn't know what good advice was. Till they leave him lifeless. Another mama crying, it's another crisis. Lord knows we just trying to live righteous. Are you willing just to make the sacrifices? I know we can't continue living like this, and I never sell my soul cause that's priceless. Tell me how we gon' make a living. Hustle on the block, who gon' save the children? Man, it's all a plot and I'm just revealing. The media just trying to make a villain. I just take the pain and paint a picture. Voices in my head, I hear the whispers when I feel this way. And I really can't take it no more. I've been fighting temptations, my Lord. I'm young and I'm restless, and I really can't help it. I never felt selfish before. I've been living so reckless.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
I said, Lord, can you help me?
The Raiders are now on the clock.
The way I feel, mine's been racing so long.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
With these problems alone, and I really can't take it no more. I've been fighting temptations, my Lord. I'm living on restless. I said, Lord, can you help me? I've never felt selfish before. I've been living so reckless, I know. To be lucky you help me, girl. I said, Lord, can you help me? I said, Lord, can you help me? I said, Lord, can you help me?
The Colts are now on the clock. The Colts have just made Brewer their guy. Let's hear more about him from Adam.
Once thought of as a top 3 offensive line pick in the draft, a series of poor performances that saw him miss several routine blocks and surrender multiple sacks had most scouts losing interest. Ross Tucker felt that he simply fell into some bad habits with his footwork, citing a lack of focus that sometimes happens when a young kid with talent begins reading his own press clippings and becomes enamored with where he'll land in the NFL. Tucker may have been onto something regarding him reading the press clippings. After seeing reports of his draft stock slipping, he put on a performance at the Combine that turned many ahead. Not often are you granted a second chance, and that's exactly what he's received by being drafted. His new team is hoping he'll make the best of it.
Hey yo, I started off gentle, my stroke game mental.
The Browns are now on the clock.
I didn't mean to offend you. Fendi belt saying I style like I'm mental. Moving wild and mental. I made another 5 this week. Your money playing hide and seek. I don't even like to speak. I just tell him hi and bye. Slide up automatic Hyundai. 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 Doing styles on them like it's common sense. Hopped out the Benz like it's common sense. Put a monkey on my feet like it's common sense. Got gorillas in the streets like it's common sense. Stack the money heads up like it's second nature. Gotta stay pulled up like it's second nature. Keep the chip in my hair like it's second nature. Big make me stare like second nature. Said you're gonna do it, yeah, I haven't did it. I'm handling it, handy with it. Think I'ma do it, let that do it. Bang. Stick jam like what happened to it. Was it not working, bruv? Why you think I'm lurking, bruv? Creep on him, lean on him. Witnesses eavesdropping, keep popping. They keep bopping like I ain't seen nothing. Don't make me upset. Reach for an object. Who's that in the passenger? Brown skin, got big body. In my face, on me. Money, I got that for me. You're not popping, never pop nothing. Stop bluffing. Your opinion always destined for brilliance. Wouldn't rest on a million. Dressed as civilians. All them masked up looking creepy. Park up, jump out, jump in. Skirt out like it's too easy. If anybody else didn't see me. Doing styles on them like it's common sense. Hopped out the Benz like it's common sense. Put a monkey on my feet like it's common sense. Got gorillas in the streets like it's common sense. Stack the money heads up like it's second nature. Gotta stay pulled up like it's second nature. Keep a chip in my hair like it's second nature. Big make me stare like second nature.
The Panthers are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock.
It's in the genes, you know what I mean? all types.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
Starts with a feeling, and you ride it right away. Crashing so the sparks can come together. Don't need a reason why the universe was
The Rams are now on the clock.
running on and on forever. And it's a long flight on this battle star where we fight for love no matter where we are. And there's a
The Packers are now on the clock.
makes me feel like the gold on work. You got me like, ooh. You got me like, You got me like, and ooh. With all the things you do. Yeah, anything and everything I make you feel. Well, honey, I feel it with you. Baby, you're flashing, and I'm blinded by your light. I love the way you Jupiter is rising. You got me reacting like a lunatic tonight.
The Packers have served up their newest pick, and it's Butler.
A skilled running back with a nose for the end zone, his draft stock got a shot in the arm after setting a team record for single-game rushing touchdowns. He's a unique mixture of speed, power, and agility, reminding some draft experts of Emmitt Smith. Sources I spoke with absolutely love his linebacker mentality, refusing to go out of bounds and taking on defenders in hopes of extra yards wherever and whenever possible. He should see immediate action in the preseason and compete for the starting spot.
The sun is blasting out a ray of light.
You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes, my
The Bengals are now on the clock.
kick up the U. Man, know that I kick up the U.
The Giants are now on the clock.
You twist up the truth, look, you're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the U. Man,
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
dare try to twist up the truth. How dare you twist up the truth? When I come round there like a bad boy, do it. Done all the talking, go on and do it. Running through the party, bottle of it. Rolls in my ear saying storms, don't do it. Double on my shoulder, I don't lack. Hitting with a business, I don't scrap. Even when I'm bar.
The Redskins are now on the clock.
What you talk about? Clown, stand down. Never had a thing, never had a pound. You were never bad then, you ain't bad now. Never had them, then look back down. Wait, I saw bare kicks, saw bare clothes. Said not that, I can't wear those. I don't like them, they're not my thing. They went silent, they're all weirdos. Like, yeah, storms don't clear. Never had a Tom Ford or
The 49ers are now on the clock.
tell them don't do it, don't dare. Don't care who you know from my block. You're not Al Capone.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
I still do the road in my socks. Like who's gonna stop me? You, him, little man. I got blue slims. Don't be an idiot. Move smart. I've been killing it. New king. You ain't ready for my new stuff. You're a boy by yourself. Go and group up. And when Crep went states for the BTs, I was covering Crep like a boot cut. If mad, it's a family thing. Straight family thing. Dumb man, I broke no salary thing. Had a young thing called Amy telling me to come round hers on a Valerie thing. Hashtag Murky Academy thing. You were like art and the gallery thing. Dumb boy there wanna chat about bars. Wanna chat about. You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boot. I got the big size toes on my feet. Your face ain't big for my boots. Kick up the U. Man, know that I kick up the U. Them boy there try to twist up the truth. How dare you twist up the truth? Look, I'm too hot. I got money in my shoebox. I'm the man of the house when my show sold out like the brother from the Boondocks. Beat Swan in my boombox. Still meat from the stew pot. Man, I'm go sick when my tune drops. Little man, that's a hooplo, not a hoopla. What? Pronounce it right. I got magic, I'm down to die for this. I don't care, bro, I'm down. Man, stress, so I'm bound to like my slips. Wait, I'm bound to ride for flips. Real G's gonna ride around to this. Man, I got no time.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
This waste man thing. I don't
The Ravens are now on the clock.
came here to relax, but if it gets mad, make a young boy take man's things. Try to tell me
The Titans are now on the clock.
you're never too big to rebel.
The Steelers are now on the clock.
Boy, you're never too big
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
my girl. Salute to my sister as well. Gotta keep trophies down at my mum's bit. Man, I'm getting way too big for my shelf. Man, I see bare MCs on the sideline, but I still got a couple bangs in the pipeline. Man, I got grown men at me. You're getting way too old for the timeline. You're getting way too old for a diss. Should've looked after your kids. Get out the booth, go home to your son. It's never too late to commit. It's like man love, put my name in a random flag, get a plane to Qatar. This year I learned how to take care of business. Next year I'll learn how to play the guitar. You're getting way too big for your boots. You're never too big for the boots.
So it's Sanders off the board, Adam. What do you have on him?
Of all the running backs who participated at the All-Star game, he definitely had the roughest outing. Matt Miller told me he was not picking the right lanes anytime he was handed the ball. He was stuck to the line on almost every carry, and he didn't get very far if he did make it past the line. He just didn't show that natural instinct to attack the weaker areas of the defensive line. Coaches in the NFL don't respond well to backs who run from sideline to sideline looking for a hole that doesn't exist. They prefer north to south style runners who take the ball and burst through the open lane or make a hole of their own if none exists. He doesn't seem to have that instinct yet, but now that he's been picked up, we'll see if he can find it.
Man, too broke to pay attention. Man. Yeah. Man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
Endless. The game changed. I blame these lame pretenders. My friends and Benzes parked at the entrance. Inside, you still hear the engine. Like, ren, this is your ending. If you're offended, I dare you defend it. This rushing through my blood like the Kremlin. I'm back with a vengeance. And this is what the sound of revenge is. Win-win. Man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. Where I come from, you can't visit. I talk money, I guess you understand different. Hand gestures counting till my hands blister. You can't miss us, louder than Fran Drescher. Pinky rings, hand kisses, soprano. I feel like Paulie Castellano in designer stitches. I heard him say
The Bears are now on the clock.
mind your business. What kind of honor is this? I'm trying to see Madonna, all kind of riches. In Miami, dining with the finest. Everybody acting kind of vicious. These politicians won't let my brother visit. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. He's a fake baller, globe trotter, bank account $4, no comma. I know you wanna pop collars. I know you wanna pop collar. Top dollar, pull up in that top dollar. Yeah, she got that.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Top dollar, yeah. Man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different. They dropped the ball and so I ran with it. I'm like, man, listen. All I got is this ambition. A couple million make you stand different.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
I ran with it.
The Eagles are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock.
That's it.
Yeah. Young Gerald. Yeah.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Yeah. Die line with the boom pow. Every week now I switch to a new style. 2 12s in the back just blew out. Everything I do end up in the news now. Yeah. Lead a club with a few now. Just some Hollywood and they do. I'm in the mood now. 2 a.m. What you wanna do now? What you wanna do now? Little baby pass. Don't spill on me. That's Margella. Got this Oakland game to tell her. She look familiar. Like Coachella, what's her name? Isabella, forget it, yeah. It's like a week ago, but we both know how weekends go.
The Cardinals are now on the clock.
Lockjaw got me speaking slow like, yeah, I'm blessed. I don't GA. You tryna, yes on yes. Say less. Say less. You ain't got, say less. Yeah. Say less. Hey girl, what it do? If you got friends, cool, bring a few through. No fun if the homies now R.I.P. Nate Dogg, this too true. And you know what I'm down for. Round 2, round 3, and a round 4.
The Browns are now on the clock.
Next up was the uproar. Yeah, was like a week ago, but we both know how weekends go. Trying to tuck off, got some places.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
Like wow, she's blessed, I'm blessed. I don't GA. You tryna, yes on yes. Say less. Say less. You ain't got.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.
Sheesh. What you saying? I don't understand. I'm out my mind. I popped.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
I swear this lockshot got me stuttering. Girl, you so.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
Sheesh. Get it. My favorite rush. You talkative, ain't gotta say too much. Be quiet. Who got some grapes? I'm trying to. I'm on board for these. Get it. Not complicated. No conversation. Get it. Not complicated.
question. Please say less. Please say less.
Please say less. I'm blessed, I'm blessed. I don't GA. You tryna. Yes on, yes on, yes on, yes. Say less. Say less. You ain't got, you ain't go. Say less. Say less. Say less. You ain't got, you ain't go. Say less.
Picture me putting my city all over the map. They wasn't believers, I had to get even in mad.
The Rams are now on the clock.
We coming up, pulling up, jumping all over your grass. So tell them I got a new girl. Tell them that I'm begging, I want on my 50s in cash. I'm tired of living check to check.
The Packers are now on the clock.
Smiling in my grave, fresh to death. I've been Wu-Tang with a spectral deck. Yeah, I got that, I gotta just get off my chest. I cannot miss it, got lots on my list and you next.
The Bills are now on the clock.
But I think I might just skirt off, blow the speakers and turn up. Pop up, go to church with my shirt off. Tell the Lord that I'm here now.
The Saints are now on the clock.
Breaking rules like there's no laws, and I did it for a long time.
The Falcons are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock.
What you mean? And now I'm just a so what you mean? Hold up, whoa, what you mean? Hold up now. Don't know what you think it compare me to.
The Chargers are now on the clock.
Yeah. I do what I do, I don't care if you like it or love it. Tell all of my I got a new girl.
The Redskins are now on the clock.
I wanted my money in hundreds. I'm tired of living on the edge. I wanted, they gon' call the feds. I just bought a cost an arm and leg. My mama told me take it back and get a job instead. Where's your common sense? Me and the devil got too much in common, I swear. Yeah. Born in the ghetto, I never had nothing to fear.
The 49ers are now on the clock.
I wanted, so I might just throw a hissy fit. Call up Cassie after she broke up with Diddy, yeah. I told Shorty, you should talk.
The Jets are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock.
What you mean?
The Steelers are now on the clock.
I said, what you mean? Listen.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
No, I said, what you mean? Whoa. I said, what you mean?
The Texans are now on the clock.
You thought I retired, you thought I was...
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
It is considered as one of the coldest. Still a put a partner rapper here like Moses. I'm throwback like a molar roller. I'm cooler than a cup of yogurt. Black flag boy, truck soldier. I'm cool with laws and Ayatollahs. Rap gods like Klops and Olga. I'm King Kong, ain't nobody told you. You think Rome still. And Bobby Brown about to go get. Paul McCartney, I'm rich. I'm Muhammad Ali, I talk. I'm James Brown, about to tear down this. I'm Michael Jackson, them bad as bad gon' get. What you mean?
The Dolphins are now on the clock.
I stay myself, I never change, yeah, yeah, yeah. Do whatever, get you paid, yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Bears are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock.
Still 33 for low. Right to my dog sitting in jail.
The Eagles are now on the clock.
I'm on Keller, I'm on Gresham, I'm on Flat Shore. I'm at Magic, I'm at Polish, let them go. Then it's right back to the win on low.
The Colts are now on the clock.
We wide open. Kicking flavor with me, neighbor, yeah, we look.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Cause the bottom where we come from. Me no pray for little paper, need a lump sum. Real spiel, yeah, I'd rather be, yeah. Broke, real, little rich. All in love with her.
The Lions are now on the clock.
Don't blame me, oh, nigga, shame me. Had to get it, how I got it, on my phone, 2 feet. Don't blame me, I'm what the game made me, not what
The Browns are now on the clock.
let it change me, I'm the same.
The Panthers are now on the clock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dirty soda, treat me like a stain, yeah, yeah, yeah. Do whatever, get you paid, yeah, yeah, yeah. Rolling from the cradle to the grave.
The Jaguars are now on the clock.